Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this first session of the day. Can you hear me all right? I hear very weird feedback noise. Can you hear me okay? In front and in the back? Okay, brilliant. So again, welcome to this first session of the day. I think you made a smart move. Everybody's going to talk about NIS2. I'm going to talk about NIS2 as well. So once you've seen me, or especially heard me, there's no need to look at any other session because they're all NIS2 anyway. So my name is Vincent van Biervliet. I am a pre-sales manager at Wallix, and we do PAM and other stuff. And today I want to talk to you, only 25 minutes, half an hour, on NIS2 and how we can help also provide you the necessary tools to attain compliance for NIS2. Right. So the main topic today is going to be NIS2 itself, but I'm also going to talk about how certain technologies can help you obtaining the compliance for NIS2, so IDRs, IAG, PAM, etc., and a small word on Wallix itself. So first of all, a little bit about NIS2. What is NIS2? First of all, why NIS2? Well, obviously, as you all know, people are working from home much more often than they used to do. Companies need to give access to external people much more than they used to do, and everything is going digital anyway. So there is an increasing danger for anything concerning cyber risks. And we have a lot of rules around compliance, around cybersecurity, but this is a new one. The NIS2, being provided in 2022, is going to be implemented in October 24. So if this is the first time you hear about NIS2, then you're a little bit late for the dance, but it's going to help you still to prepare a bit more. So why NIS2? Well, we can see that all the cyber attacks, they keep increasing in size and in occurrence every year. So, for example, $20 billion is the cost of the ransomware attacks that we've seen in 21, and that's already 3 years ago. So this year is going to be much more again. And we've seen that is 57, almost 60 times more than we used to see in 2015. So it's an exponential increase in attacks and in cost that we see occurring for companies. We see approximately every 11 seconds a company is being victim of a ransomware attack. So what is NIS2? Well, NIS2, the 2 indicating that there is a NIS1. The original NIS was being applied in 2016. Is a directive, meaning it comes from the European Union, basically. A directive being a set of guidelines or goals, actually, that member states have to obtain, and the member states can apply that within their own law. So they have to interpret what needs to be done, what needs to be obtained, and the member states can individually implement that in their local laws. The NIS2, as I said before, becomes law, or should become law, in every single member state by October 24. And the goal is to ensure an increase in cyber resilience, being more resilient to cyber attacks. Nobody likes ransomware, nobody likes to be breached, but here are some, let's say, external factors that will help you get there by trying to make you compliant to the NIS2 directive. One word not related to that, you'll see that the screen is flickering occasionally. It's not my laptop, it's not Wallix, it's not my presentation. We have no idea what it is, probably the beamer, so hopefully nobody has epilepsy or anything, because otherwise I'd advise you to not watch too much to the screen. What are the key changes compared to NIS? So we already had NIS. The question is, why would we want NIS2? Well, there's some very big changes compared to the original one from a few years ago. So first of all, the scope. NIS applied to a certain set of companies, about 16,000, which is really a lot. But NIS2 will apply to actually 10 times more companies, being around 160,000 companies that are need to implement some measures regarding to NIS2. Another key change is the requirements for base control measures. So you really have to, from the beginning, anything that you do, you have to apply some measures, some rules, some protection against cyber attacks. Another one is the supervisory measures for national authorities. Yeah, that one is falling out of the box, but basically the notification obligation. And for those of you that are familiar with GDPR, you know that is similar. So in GDPR, which only treats personal data, you also had the notification obligation. Here with NIS2, you will have that whenever it comes to a cybersecurity attack. You will have the obligation to mention that. Management commitment is a fun one. So this goes to the managers. Managers, not pre-sales managers, but other managers can be personally liable for cyber attacks. Whenever a breach is happening, they may actually be held personally accountable. And again, this is close to what GDPR has as a rule set. And then finally, there are hefty fines, meaning you can have to pay a lot of money, not just to the cyber criminals that are trying to ransomware the hell out of you, but also to the national local authorities who are allowed to fine you when your security measures have not been put in place as NIS2 wanted you to have them. When we talk about the wider scope on the companies to whom the NIS2 applies, we see that there are two types of entities, as they're being called, in the annex of the NIS2 Directive. So one is the important entities and the other is the essential entities. How are they defined? They are defined by size. So if somebody tells you size doesn't matter, that's not always true. So we have, for example, large enterprises, which are enterprises with 250 employees or more and have a turnover or a revenue rather of 50 million euro or more. When those large enterprises fall into one of the categories that you can see of the sectors of high criticality, they will be an essential entity. Small companies, or medium rather, I should say, of more than 50 employees but less than 250, and have a revenue that's smaller than 50 million but still above 10 million, they fall always under the important entities. And then you have the small, the mom and dad shop, the bakery across the corner. They are out of scope. They don't have to apply any NIS2 measurements. So depending on these sectors, those companies will either be essential or important. And a change with the there we go. That's the slide I wanted to show. One of the changes with the NIS, the original NIS, is the sectors in which the companies are considered to be important or essential. So on the left we have the essential entities, and new items or new sectors, for example, would be space. I mean, you may think space is something exotic, but lots of companies are actually supplying parts for the space industry. Transport is new. Postal services, so we can all hope that bpost will now deliver your letters a bit faster. Production of food, I think that's very essential indeed, or at least important. Manufacturing, anything OT is now also affected by the NIS2 Directive. And important is that if your company is a supplier to one of those essential or important entities, you also have to apply or have the measures of the NIS2 Directive implemented. So it's not just when you are in one of those sectors, but if you are supplying to that. So the supply chain is very important here in NIS2 as well. So what does NIS2 mean for you? Well, basically, there are some items, and I've listed 8 of them here that are important to you. First of all, risk assessments and security policies for information systems. And we go into detail for each of them, or a few of them at least, later on. Security procedures for employees with access to sensitive or important data. And again, for those who know GDPR, this is similar, except that this is not just for personal data, but for all data that may or may not be sensitive or important at least. The third one is an easy one. The use of multi-factor authentication. Is there anybody here who, for their job, when they need to access not necessarily all systems, but at least some systems, does not have to use any form of MFA, multi-factor authentication? Anybody? Or nobody dares to say so? But anyway, if that is correct, then this is a very good, of course. So it means that everybody has a minimum of one service, one resource that you need to use MFA for. And MFA is very easy to implement, and everybody knows that it's a very sensible measure to take. But this now becomes law. When you're in one of those sectors or supplying to one of those sectors, you will need to use MFA. Incident management for prevention. So basically, you need to think about what can happen, what will we do when something happens, how can we treat that, what is the procedure to follow, etc. Very important, and it's something that in a lot of cases people will only think of after they had their first incident, but you need to think of that beforehand. Business continuity and crisis management. I think this is a logical as well. Most people have that already in mind, typically for disaster recovery, but business continuity is also necessary in case of ransomware attacks, but also when nothing is destroyed, when you have, for example, a breach, then there is a lot of data lost, obviously, but also means that you cannot necessarily work with that data anymore. You need to apply measures. So there's a lot to think about even when nothing is destroyed, to keep having your business continuity. Testing and auditing of your security measures, I think, again, that's a very logical one. You want to know that when you have a plan, it actually works. Supply chain security, the one that is new in the NIS2 Directive, meaning that if you work with somebody in one of the essential or important entities, you are not a victim, but you have to apply NIS2 as well. And also means for those companies, the important or essential companies, they have to look at their supply chain and make sure that these people are actually doing their job as well, making sure that they are secure, making sure that they apply MFA, making sure that their data is secure. And again, this goes back to GDPR, where you have the people that supply data or that are looking after your data, etc. And finally, cybersecurity training. We all know that the weakest link is the human, or the problem between keyboard and chair. You may have the best systems in the world. You may even use our solutions, but it's still the human that can have implement less security. So training, recertification, all that is very important. So let's talk about the notification obligation. Thank you. So notification obligation means that you have, moment t equals 0, you have an incident, you have a security breach somewhere. Within 24 hours, there is the obligation to already publish something, an early warning. You need to notify your authorities. Within 3 days, within 72 hours, you need to have a full report. And then within 1 month, which is enough time, hopefully, you need to give a final detailed report. And that final detailed report includes a post-mortem analysis to see how did it happen. Not just, okay, we had data stolen, but also you need to know who came in, what is the source. Was it an email that somebody clicked on a link? What happened when that person did that? Was there a malware that then circulated? How did it go on the network, etc., etc. So the final detailed report needs to have everything that with a big analysis of what has happened. Management accountability. Again, managers may be personally accountable for what's happening, meaning that they can be held accountable and they can actually have a criminal record because of what's happening within. So that should be an incentive, of course, for your management to at least apply as many measures as possible. Of course, and again, this goes back to GDPR as well, if you actually have your measures in place, if you actually have done your duty, and something still happens, then it's very unlikely you will be held personally accountable. The idea is you have to incentivize, you have to motivate people to actually undertake something, to prepare in case of. And if the preparation is there and somebody made a mistake or whatever happened, then you wouldn't be held personally accountable. It's just the neglect, or mainly neglect, that would lead to that. And then we can talk about the penalties. So there are, again, difference between essential and important entities. Also, the penalties will be different for them. 7 million for important ones, 10 million for essential ones, or 1.4% of the total annual turnover to 2% of the annual turnover. And each time it is which one is bigger. So if the 10 million is bigger than the 2%, or the 2% is bigger than the 10 million, that's what you're going to be paying as a maximum fine. Again, we see with GDPR that this type of fines has been defined there as well. But we have not seen a lot of companies actually having to pay those fines, or at least not the maximum. But it's still there in case you're really neglecting your duties. Fines are there to make sure that you have an incentive to do all your implementation of the security measures that NIS2 is asking from you. So how much does it actually cost? Well, it depends. People are looking at a 22% increase of the IT budget for those companies that have not been affected by NIS before. However, if you already are under the scope of the original NIS directive, then the additional cost is only around 12% for ICT. And obviously, these are only averages. In theory, you may already have a lot of things in place. And I'm thinking about MFA. So you all have MFA in place already, even if you're not under the scope of NIS already. So it means that's a cost that you wouldn't have to do. So there is some cost, but it's obviously much less than whatever it would cost you if you get breached, not even counting the fines that you may be having to pay. So how to prepare for compliance? I mean, the first one, I think, is a very obvious one. Check. Do you actually have to do something? Now, I'm in favor of implementing security rules for everybody, and not just because I sell or help selling solutions, but just because I think it's a sensible thing to do. But first of all, check if actually you fall under the NIS2 scope. Then evaluate security measures. So, as always, it's an 80-20 job, in the sense that 80% of the work is just looking at reading, it's checking things. So are you already, for example, compliant with ISO 27001? Because a lot of the items in ISO 27001 come back in NIS2. This is something that I'll show you as well. Then, okay. Well, you can give, no. Okay. So apparently now everything is going to be better, no black lines anymore. But we're running it from another device. Check, evaluate, look at what you have already in place, look at what needs to be added. Focus on the risk management, the corporate accountability. Again, managers are responsible, personally responsible. The reporting obligations and business continuity, and then incorporate. New security management measures, but also remember the supply chain, very important. Now, let's see what happens. Are you sure you... So it's still on my laptop. You have to love technology. I think somebody breached their system. So NIS2, all interesting, I hope. But how can technologies such as ID as a service, IAG, and PEM actually help you? Still works. Or how can we help you? So this circle represents a lot, if not all, of the recent initiatives on directives, on laws, and all that. Do we have DORA, a European regulation coming from finance and insurance? GDPR is obviously a very well-known one. BSI, the IT Grundschutz, sounds and is very German. ISO 27001, NIST, etc., etc. Then we have B3S, which is now obsolete because of I think it's because of a NIS2. I think anyway. So there's a lot of directives. There's a lot of requirements that you need to fill, and you may or may not fall under that. But what do you need to do for each and every of those single different laws, directives, initiatives that you need to be compliant to? So you see the green check marks. The green check marks mean that we, as a company, Wallix, we have made a mapping. And a mapping means that we look in detail to the directive. We look in detail to your law, local law, or European law, or American, because NIST is more a standard than the US. We look at IEC 62443, an important upcoming one as well. And we look, what can we do to help you there? So we have a full list of all the details, and I'll show you some examples a bit later of how our technology can help you with that, comply with some of the items there. So we've done that also for NIS2, of course. And then what we do is we talk about risk class. So if we have a matrix of with on the horizontal scale the probability of damage, so how dangerous is something basically, how likely is something to happen, and then the extent of the damage. And damage would be typically the financial reserve, but not only. Of course, there are fines, of course, there's ransomware, of course, there's your non-productivity for a while. But in some cases, and unfortunately, these are real-life cases, we have had loss of life, where, for example, a malware attack or a ransomware attack in a hospital has made the patients being evacuated to another hospital, and on the way, because they did not have all the care, that person died. So that's all included in that. I only have 5 minutes left, so let me continue and go a little bit faster to these things. This slide will show you that actually we have looked in detail, and one of the important articles in NIS2 is Article 21. That's the one that applies a lot to security, IT security, cybersec, and you can find all the people around here that can help you with those things. We also show you mapping, in this case, between ISO 27001 Annex A, to be precise, and the Article 21 of NIS2. Now, how can we help as a company? Now, Wallix has a portfolio that consists out of access management. We talk about Wallix ID as a service, meaning that we can provide a very easy way to all your applications using MFA with a cloud-based identity management. So you see the IDRs itself and the MFA and the vaulting. We are most known for our PEM solution, Privileged Access Management, that does secrets management, remote access, PEDM and EPM, and then the session management. And finally, we also have Wallix IAG, which will help you with checking who has access to what. And this is a very important component in all your security measures. It means you can very easily define, of course, who can do something, but I'm sure that 97.3% of you are in a company or organization that has an Active Directory where you have forgotten who is in there or why certain people are in certain groups, and that those people may have access without you even knowing it, and they shouldn't have access anymore. IAG, very important, is the core of your security measures, making sure that people only have access to what they can access and are allowed to access. Maybe just one thing to mention, everything is on-prem, everything is in cloud, everything is hybrid, everything is SaaS. You ask, we do, so we have basically everything you would need. Here's an example of a mapping between the Article 21, again the most detailed one on cyber security risk management, and what Wallix can do. So, for example, Preamble 33 about cloud computing services should cover digital services, etc. Many, but remote access, and where resources are distributed, well, we can use those types of solutions from Wallix. But let me go a bit further. This gives you another detailed overview of in our product when we use it. What are you actually obtaining in terms of security of NIS2? Quickly past that one. There are some very technical slides. Obviously, we are a technical company. The point is, obviously, we can help you getting compliant, but I want to go to, this one is not working very well. There we go. So remember these 8 points for NIS2. So risk assessment and security policies for information systems. What we will map here is the IAG. So identity at the core of your security, knowing who is accessing what. Then the security procedures for employees with access to sensitive or important data. Well, I think an obvious one will be that you have PEDM, meaning that elevation of the user or elevation of rights is not based on the user, but on the application, meaning that you run with the lowest rights and then elevate only on demand when necessary and allowed, rather than giving admin accounts to everybody. And of course, the privileged access management solution, meaning that a user can get access, but only when he's monitored, when he has done an approval request, when using MFA to log in, etc., etc. Multi-factor authentication, I will not go in detail on that, but it's logical that we use, where is it now? Multi-factor authentication, we provide that with IDRs, we provide that with access management. One of the things is that external access to your local machines, devices, resources from the outside can be done in a very secure way, including the use of MFA, including approval requests, without the need of a VPN. Meaning that as a supplier, and we talk about supply chain here as well, does not need to install 15 different VPN clients for their 15 different customers. They can just use their browser to log in there. And then we have, of course, the supply chain security, which is basically what I just explained. The access management, so basically giving access to RDP, SSH, or even applications without the need of a VPN, but with HTTPS security, with multi-factor authentication, etc., etc. And everything, of course, being monitored by the system. And with that, I think I am at the end of the presentation, just in time. So this is just the layers of defense that we can provide you with. Oh, okay, this can go a little bit faster. If you need more information, obviously do not hesitate to come over to our booth, just next to the next theater, basically. We are all happy and ready to talk to you. And then, in theory, I have some information on Wallix itself. Yeah, guys, I'm not a sales, So I'm not going to go in detail, and I'm at the end of the presentation anyway, if you need that information. But basically, we're a French company. We have a few thousand customers. We are present in a lot of countries. And we are recognized by Gartner, by Forrester. We have ANSI, the French. We have BSI coming up. So we are not just doing something. We know what we're doing, and we're not the only ones that think we know what we are doing. So we offer a good security for you all. And with that, I would like to thank you very much for your attention. Any questions? As again, we're in the booth over there next to the theater next door. And have a very nice day. Thank you very much.